Quite the eventful second episode of House of the Dragon. And just when we thought maybe the season premiere was towards the high end of this show, I dare say that this one may have elevated it a little bit more. We get to talk about that and so much more here on this episode of House of the Empire. Welcome in, everybody, to our live stream talking about season 3, episode 2, or as I like to call it, season 2, episode 10. But we'll get into that among some other things, including the real reason why the Halloween TV series has been put on the shelf. I'm going to have to yield that to the fellow that's to my side over here because he'll have way more info and way more details on it, and we'll dive into that when the time comes. But first, we're here to talk about dragons. Sean, how did you feel about the way this episode went, the way it ended, and do you think it should have been a season finale?
I mean, I would like to think if you're someone who, I'll forgive House of the Dragon fans who haven't seen Game of Thrones, and there are some that exist. But if you are someone who has watched this show since Game of Thrones, and you see how this season has started, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that episode 1 was episode 9 of season 2, and episode 2 was episode 10 of season 2. I mean, they've basically already told us that too, but now there's some ironclad proof to it. I think the goal here is now to make sure that episode 7 of season 3 still feels like a penultimate, and early reports are that it's supposed to, and that episode 8 will feel like a season finale. It is. I don't want to give too much away here, but I will say this. That is the definition of blockbuster TV making, or should I say Flixbuster TV making?
There you go.
Yeah, like I have a lot to say, and I did not end last night's episode disappointed.
That says a lot because there have been episodes where you do end a little on the disappointed side. So I'm glad to hear that that's not the way that this one went for you. Randy, how did this episode treat you? How did you come away from it as soon as those credits started rolling?
Yeah, I turned to my wife and was like, "Yeah, this should have been a season finale. That felt like a season finale. That felt like one of those episodes where it's such a cliffhanger to end it on, and you're just gonna go, oh my god, I've got to wait 2, 3 years before we actually see the fallout from all this."
2 to 3
But hey,
years.
we only get to have to wait till next week, so it's
Mm-mm.
yeah, it hit on all cylinders. It was a great follow up to last week, and yeah, I dare say it's definitely, in my opinion, so far, since it's early, the best episode of the season.
Yeah, I mean, there's
But
only
it's
two
early
episodes
on,
to
but
go
in
on,
my
but
in my summation,
yeah, it's a front runner for sure. I would dare say it's gonna probably put its way into that top 5 of the entire series conversation by the time everything is said and done, because this is the first time that we see anybody, like, actually fighting to ascend the throne rather than just usurping it. So, um, there's definitely a lot to unpack, not just with that, but the political ramifications, the relational ramifications, the fallout of Jace's death from the last episode. There's a lot that gets packed into this episode. Um, he's with us more in spirit than he is body tonight because of maybe some technical difficulties, but Ryan is back again to discuss another episode. Man, we talked about last week's being what felt like a spiritual penultimate, and so far the trend seems to feel like that continued with this one feeling like a finale. How did you feel about it?
I absolutely agree with you. It definitely felt like the season 2 finale, and it definitely had pacing of it too, right? I think we've grown quite accustomed to the penultimate episode having a lot of energy and the big impacts and the big battles, and then it kind of follows to a much more uh, I won't say that's slow isn't the right word, but a much more calm conclusion. And obviously, this wasn't the most calm episode. I think there's a lot of emotions involved. Definitely had the pacing that felt like a season finale. So if we get uh, a penultimate episode and a finale episode twice in this season, I will be, because I do think this episode is spectacular.
Yeah, Sean made a really interesting point there about how we're still only getting 8 episodes, but this seventh and eighth really needs to be part of its own storyline here in season 3 now. Um, Dustin, how would you feel about having basically 2 season finales in one, if that's the direction that all of this seems to be heading?
I mean, I think the episode was fantastic. It just fired on all cylinders. Um, I really dig. Like, I started thinking about it, and having just watched season 2, thinking, okay, that kind of ended not how I expected, on a kind of a weaker note. That I can absolutely see that episode 1 was the penultimate, and then episode 2 would have been the finale. But the way they've done this, it makes you think, okay, what else do they have in store for us if they've given us these 2 episodes and really just hit us with this early on in the season. And like Ryan said, usually you have the penultimate episode, and then where a lot of the action happens, and then the finale is kind of dealing with some of those introspects of like what happened in that penultimate episode. So I think it's going to be great if we get another finale. I mean, if they do repeat what they did for these last 2 episodes at the end, it's going to make for a pretty amazing season.
Which is saying a lot because there's a lot of opinion that the second season is rather lackluster.
I
So
think I agree with that. And if I
this
think these 2 episodes had been in season 2, I think people would have felt a little bit differently.
man, it's like you're reading my mind right now, because my question that I was going to give around the horn right now, and it can just be a simple yes, no, you can do 15, 20 seconds to kind of explain it, but if you need to. But Dustin already said yes. Ryan, I feel like this will be a general consensus, but we'll go back counterclockwise. Would you have thought higher of season 2 if these 2 episodes had been in it? Yes or no?
100% yes.
Randy?
I mean, do you really need to ask? But I'll answer anyway. Yeah, it definitely would have. It's a shame that it got pushed to season 3. Not that it's a bad thing in that respect, but at least we got it, So, but yeah, definitely 100%.
I wonder how much higher it would be if these had been in there, and what our opinion of season 3 would be if these weren't considered season 3 episodes. Like there's a whole lot of what if in there, but Sean, I'm assuming it's a yes from you as well.
I'll go one step further. Had these episodes been in season 2, you would be comparing season 2 to season 2 of Game of Thrones. Season 2 of Game of Thrones is build, 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 Blackwater, and then a really good follow up episode after that I can't remember the name of, where Tywin is back and essentially in charge, and puts the king to bed or whatever. Yeah, I think it would be compared to Game of Thrones season 2. I think would have been the same structure. The interesting thing here is, not to go on too long of a tangent, but it apparently is going to be that way. Again, this is just reports, where episode 7 will feel like a penultimate, and episode 8 will kind of be like your ultimate cliffhanger episode to set up the next season. But interestingly enough, the critics have seen the first 4 episodes of the season, and a lot of people love the next episode, calling it a very different, almost experimental episode, the way it's put together, and that it hits. So I really think that this show lost a little bit of steam with the way season 2 happened, and I basically think they've come out swinging for the fences.
Well, they definitely have a bigger budget for it. We talked about all the different elements that they've incorporated into this season, how many thousands of liters of water and how many tons of propane to light the pyrotechnics and things like that. Before we get into Team Green versus Team Black, I just want to give whatever flowers I have to the cinematography team for this episode. I think this might be one of the most beautiful episodes we have ever seen. The camera angles, the shot selection, the money shots that they provide, including at the very end with the reflection in Otto's blood.
That was
Is
magical.
just that was just an amazing shot. But you've got dragons that are flying overhead. I think Adam with sea smoke overlooking the carnage early in the episode. I think even the scene with Caraxes having a drink of water kind of makes it a little more personable, rather than just seeing a dragon as a fighting animal. You see it as a creature that needs sustenance. And so there's moments like that that are beautifully shot. There's moments of action that are beautifully shot. Um, the courtyard when Rhaenyra and Daemon enter, and you see it from above, almost like you're observing the fight, like one of the servants, who's up in the balconies. Um, just the types of shots that they use, the angles that they select, how long they stay in those before they change up your view and change up the angle and whatever. Um, it's so beautifully done, so beautifully crafted. To me, it probably felt the most cinematic of any episode in the series. I felt like that was an episode that I could have watched on the big screen. Any thoughts on the cinematography? Any shots that stood out to you, fellas?
I mean, I enjoyed the opening shot of being in the water, seeing the dragons
Mhm.
fly overhead and the fire from the perspective of being underneath, below the surface, and
Mhm.
just slowly seeing body kind of sinking down. And I think there was some really there was a lot of thought put into some of the positions they were put in for the camera shots to kind of give us a scale of stuff, especially like some of the battle scenes, seeing the carnage that was laid to waste. So yeah, but that opening shot for me was really interesting.
The cinematography is so key in a show like this, but specifically in the big episodes. All the hype was behind the battle for the gullet, and well, I thought it was a really good episode. I think Zach and I really hit home the point last week that it had its issues. It had some pacing issues, and frankly, maybe the cinematography in that episode wasn't as good as it could have and should have been. That is not on display in this episode. I have no problem in saying this episode, Queen's Landing, um, was miles better than the Battle for the Gullet.
Great title, by the way. Great title. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, I was
interrupt you,
done.
but it's a very clever name because we've seen King's Landing all this time, and to change it to Queen's Landing for the arrival of Rhaenyra, but then to also have it be rather tongue in cheek because she is literally landing on her dragon. It's a very cleverly crafted episode title. I appreciated that. When there's a little wordplay, I've always got to acknowledge it a little bit. Um, Randy, Ryan, was there a shot in particular that stood out to you? Something that just felt like, I don't know what you would call it, a money shot, a jaw dropping shot, something that just stood
Yeah,
above
the
something
one for
else.
me was the four dragons in formation flying towards King's Landing, Queen's Landing, as we shall call it from henceforth. Um, just seeing the scope of those dragons, flying towards their ultimate destination, their destiny in a way, really stuck out to me as this was a visceral moment of we've seen the dragons in battle, we've seen massive battles over the years, but just the knowing what it meant to see that power in one scene, and it was beautiful, and the scale and the detail was immaculate. So for me, that was the one that really struck home the most for me. My wife, who you talked about this at the top there, Zach, she has not seen the original Game of Thrones. I convinced her to start watching House of Dragon with me, so this is her first go with this. But she wanted to be a film major and when she was younger, so cinematography is her thing. It's the thing she loves the most, and she is the one that just stopped in the tracks of the show and just said, Ryan, look at the reflection in the blood. This is the best thing I've ever seen. So to me, that was a home run. You touched on it, but I just wanted to reemphasize how quality that moment was, and even the bloody footsteps as Rhaenyra ascended her throne was just the perfect metaphor of everything we've seen up to this point.
I mean, it's a metaphor of what she had to sacrifice, what she had to give up in order to make it happen. Like, she's literally leaving a trail of blood in her wake just to get there. So yeah, I loved it. Randy, did anything else pop out to you in this episode?
See, you already hit on the pool of blood because I was gonna comment on how it was like showing the reflection of the Iron Throne in the blood by itself. It's the metaphor of what it takes to claim the throne. You're not going to be clean. It's going to be an absolute bloody mess. We saw it in Game of Thrones as well, and they held true to that. But you're right. The cinematography was pretty amazing. I loved seeing Caraxus drink. I thought that was a really cool visual effect they did. I loved a lot of the close-ups they did. with the dragons, just how clean it looked. Because sometimes some of that CG just looks a bit rough, but this episode, all the dragons look beautiful, and you could see all the details, and that really is something that I can always appreciate in any type of fantasy world.
I loved how much dragon we got in House of the Dragon. We got a Vagar scene. We got a sheep stealer scene. We got those 4 dragons flying information. We got Adam using sea smoke for scouting in order to try to find Corlys. Like, one of the things that we bitched about in season 1 was it's House of the Dragon, but there's not a whole lot of dragons. It's just people talking. Now they've got the budget for it, and we've got like dragons being put to very appropriate proper use. We've got the loss of dragons like when Jace died. And so like there's so much more immersion with the dragons and the role that they play. I think it started in Rook's Rest, honestly. Like Rook's Rest had Vagar and Sunfire and Melees. And after that, I think the studio just got emboldened to use more dragons in more sequences. I, for one, cannot wait to see Vermithor in action. All we've seen is just little moments, but I want to see exactly what the proportion is, what the scale is between he and Vagar, and if those two go at it, what will that look like? Because it's I'm just getting excited thinking about it. There's so much more left to this season, and so much untapped potential, I would say. But we probably need to get into the actual meat and potatoes of this episode. And the way we've done it in the past is to take a look at how Team Black fared and take a look at how Team Green fared. Um, am I the only one who thought that there was a lot less green in this episode than I was expecting or
No,
anticipating?
there's way less green in this episode, which is why I listed it first and not Team Black first. Although I would still think the Team Green parts, as they happen, are important. This is a Team Black heavy episode.
Okay. I'm glad I wasn't the only one who thought that. But for me, I I'll kind of delegate this and see how you guys feel about it. But I feel like we just kind of need to get the greens out of the way so that we can have more time for the blacks. Because aside from uh Allison and Helena and then Eamon flying off to Harrenhal, um, there's not that much of the greens to speak of. One scene with Aegon as we get kind of caught up on what's going on with him, but for the most part, this is the Allison, Helena, and Eamon show for Team Green. Is that fair to say, Sean?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously the auto stuff at the end can be included with Team Black. I thought when it came to Allison's and Helena, part of me, given what we know that Damon saw and Helena's role in this and some of the things she has said to Eamon, she was playing a little stupid with Allison, not showing all of her cards, if that makes sense. Them trying to escape the city look, the one thing I will say is this episode has all sorts of callbacks, and I mean big callbacks to Game of Thrones, early seasons and later seasons, and we'll touch on them all as we go here. But I thought them trying to get out of the city reminded me a little bit of the final 2 episodes of Game of Thrones, where we're trying to watch the people escape the city, and obviously they don't make it. But Allison, once again, guys, like, sometimes of her own doing, and I guess in this time not, finds a way to be in the shall we say the most precarious of positions that is usually not very enlightening to her.
Most vulnerable of positions.
That's
maybe.
another one.
Randy, do you think there's a reason why the writers keep putting Alicent in these compromising positions? Like, she was basically taken as a teenage bride, and she was forced to marry her son to her daughter. She got kissed on the lips by one of her sons last week, and now she's being assaulted in this episode. Not to mention the type of abuse that Laris put on her in, what was it, season 2? I mean, it seems like any kind of way this woman can be sexually manipulated, it's happening to her.
So, if you want to look at it from the standpoint of karma, she is basically in various scenes kind of ending up basically paying for some of the things she's done over the course of her life. And I think that's kind of what I don't know if that's exactly what the writers are doing, but that's what it feels like. It feels like all the times she's just uh, done everything for her father to try to have someone ascend to the throne on their side, and just things that she's done behind the scenes, that it just feels like these things are happening to her because she's trying to atone, but karma's like, yeah, well, you also did this, so it's time for you to get some sort of comeuppance for that. I mean, it's a horrible way to look at it, but it's kind of how it looks. But also she's also realizing that there's certain things she has to go through in some respect to ensure that what she's planning in all this to actually go off. And if she didn't feel like she had to, she didn't, if Eamon didn't do what he did, I mean, you could tell she was purely disgusted by it and brought to tears from it. But looking at it as a whole, looking at it as the plan that's been hatched between her and Rhaenyra, that this feels like there's just these little things that she's having to put herself through and that's what the writers are doing, putting her through her paces to try to get what she wants. And then of course we have everything kind of coming unraveled in a way by the end of this episode.
Ryan, there are some people online that are suggesting that this particular scene that we're referencing doesn't really do much for the episode, doesn't really do much for her character. A lot of people are saying that it was needless. Do you consider it needless, or do you see a point to it?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because that's kind of where my brain was going after after Randy there. I found it needless personally. I didn't feel like it pushed the story forward in a way that was beneficial to her or to the Greens or the Blacks in general. Obviously, we know how the episode ended, and I guess there was a little bit of comeuppance based off of the ending and who died. But I was not disturbed by the scene. I saw some online commentary about people being woefully disturbed and turned off by it, and they weren't interested in the episode after that. I think that's a bit overkill, but it seemed out of place to me, just in general, because I didn't know much about the character Jasper going into this to begin with. So, obviously it felt to me like, the pretty girl at the club, was assaulted because she wore a revealing skirt. Like, not that she did anything wrong, but she was being punished for being pretty, basically. So to me, that's kind of my takeaway. I did not find it super helpful to the story whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I do think it's ironic that the Master of Laws is the one that is breaking the law and trying to take advantage of her. Dustin, what did you make of this sequence, and just what kind of impact it has on Alicent as a character?
So I agree that I don't think it really moved the needle a whole lot for I started to think about Allison's character and how she's introduced in season one, what she goes through, and she's been constantly manipulated herself into this kind of person that can then manipulate others, right? She's kind of learned the game from Otto, and when she went out into the woods and all this stuff was happening, I feel like she was realizing she's married to Viserys. Things were pretty peaceful and eventful, and I think she thought that could continue. And I think she's seeing the real, true Game of Thrones, that it could be brutal. And she started to, I think, as a character, started to realize what is all of this for? What are we doing? And when she's talking to Leanna, saying, I thought about what you said, and I was happier before all this, and realizing what is all of this worth? She's lost so much. She's lost her friendship with Rhaenyra. She lost her then husband. She has lost her grandkids, and she's seeing her son turn into a monster and needless death. And I think all of it is some of it is that she's getting her comeuppance, but um, I think it also is make you feel kind of sympathetic towards her character, because I think she has wanted to do what's right, and I think she's realizing that she made mistakes. Um, but yeah, as far as that scene in particular, I think it felt a little bit like over the top, not needed. Like, I don't think if you had not had that scene, would the impacts of the episode been the same? I think so. Um, except him getting it at the end, you felt a little bit happier about it. So it kind of was like, well, people may not have really a big feeling about this character, that he's gonna get it. So have him do something that really makes it feel like, yeah, he got it. He got his. So that felt more like a ends justify the means. But um, I think they're trying to paint her in a more sympathetic light.
Yeah, I feel like they've been doing that since a certain point in season 2 maybe, where she starts catching on to maybe what Viserys was actually trying to say, and she comes to the realization that all of this scheming, all this manipulating, all of this plotting, and where has it gotten me? And it's interesting for us as a viewer to see it, because we have both sides of the story. We have the full context. We have the big picture. But a lot of these characters don't, and that's why we have the whole Dance of Dragons in the first place. Is nobody really has the complete story except the viewer. And so to see like where she started, like you said, Dustin, to where she's ended up, you could call that growth. Like I still don't know what her end goal is. I still don't know if she has one more trick up her sleeve. I feel like she probably doesn't. I would like to say that it's growth, but because of the way that people behave in this show, because of the schemes that they make and the plots that they hatch, part of me still feels like maybe she's got something else in the works, that she's still trying to do something else for herself or for her family. And we're really going to have to kind of wait and see um, what happens. Let's talk about Helena for a second, because she has to be the purest soul and the purest spirit of anybody in this show. And I don't believe she knows. I know for sure that she doesn't know that Jace is dead. I don't know if she knows about Luke, just because of how much they shelter her. So when she's talking about making way for Rhaenyra, she references both of her boys and say that they were always kind. Um, and it was very touching to see the world through her eyes for a couple of moments longer than we usually do. Um, Sean, what did you make about her tending the garden? There's a theory about the the little caterpillar that she's messing with, and I'll maybe get to that with you in a second here, but her tending the garden and then trying to impose what little authority she has through her mother in order to try to make way for Rhaenyra's arrival.
Honestly, I don't have too much to add on this other than I'm of the firm belief she knows far more of what's going on than she's letting on.
They believe her to be a seer, and that prophecies that she's made have definitely been interesting. Um, and it'll be curious to see if what she's I didn't want to bring up Martin, but I got to bring up Martin for a second. So guys, if you'll humor me for a sec. One of George R. R. Martin's posts that he made during season 2 referenced a butterfly effect. Do you remember that post, Sean?
To an extent.
He said something to the effect of, if you have this one thing happen, it creates a butterfly effect of this other thing, and the next thing you know, we've got these butterflies flying around that were never intended to be part of the story. So I think he was referencing Sheep Stealer at the time, but he's also referencing that this point in the story, there should be another Targaryen prince. And so far, he's not part of the story yet. But what the online speculations are saying is that when she grabs a hold of this caterpillar, it's a metaphor for the impending arrival of another butterfly, as in another character that has yet to be shown. And when she picks it off of the leaf, she says something to the effect of, the season isn't right for this, or it's not the right season for this yet. And it's believed to be some writers' tongue in cheek about the post that Martin made when he was talking about characters being absent from the story. And they're saying, oh, there is another character still to be revealed, but the season's not right for it yet. Or maybe this character was supposed to be in season 2, but they're actually going to be arriving in season 3. Or the other side of the coin is like, they're saying it in season 3 for this character to arrive in season 4. But the bottom line is, Martin believed Helena was supposed to bear a son in season 2 and she didn't. And now the speculation is growing that maybe she is pregnant now and is getting ready to give birth to her son either later this season or early next season. And that was the reason why she said the season isn't quite right yet.
Yeah, I could see it being some tongue in cheek. Honestly, man, I try to not reference Martin either. I'm grateful for the universe that he has created, but at the same time, I think he's caused some issues, and um, and we're going to talk about the auto stuff at the end. But anyone who wants them to not stray from source material or change anything up, well, guess what? Spoiler alert: we're going to talk about Otto dying later in this episode. And in Fire and Blood, there's almost no details about that other than he's a traitor and he loses his head. You don't even know who does it. It's that. And I haven't read Fire and Blood. I just got to read on this last night. And I'm gonna try to stay away from it because I don't want to be spoiled on things. But like source material, again, I think I said this line last week, is in the words of Captain Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean, more just like guidelines. And I'm cool with what Ryan Condal and the team are doing. And if they want to take some fun-loving shots at George R. R. Martin while they're at it, then whatever.
Well, but I think it's also potentially alluding to the fact that there may be another player that joins the scene. And we saw in the preview for next week's episode that Darren is about to become Rhaenyra's next target. We didn't see him in this episode, but he is the next big legitimate threat depending on what happens to Aemond. And Aemond will be our next topic. But basically, in order for Rhaenyra to assert her claim to the throne successfully, she's got to get rid of whatever competition befalls her. And that would include if Helena has a son. So if she is pregnant, if she does bring about another child, that could be a potential big deal either later in this third or early in the fourth season. But let's talk about Aemond. He sacks Harrenhal. Vagar has a really cool moment. And then his arrival in the Great Hall mirrors what Daemon did in season 2, only he's a lot more reckless, and it ends up becoming his downfall. Randy, I'm gonna give it to you first. We'll go clockwise and finish with Sean. What did you make of the parallels between Aemon's entrance to Harrenhal and the way that he sacks it and the impact that he has on characters there, versus the way that Daemon approached it in the past season?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until you brought that up. So it's really interesting to just kind of see. It's kind of like the whole difference between someone who's a seasoned veteran versus a rookie who is just pull a piss and vinegar and is just going for it. And that's when mistakes happen. He just laid waste to everything, didn't really care about anybody. It's like, hey, pick up your sword. I don't have a sword. Okay, I'll stab you anyway. Like, it's rather than show any respect or honor, he was just all about being selfish, which of course led to him getting stabbed. And basically we get to see him groveling for his life before we get end scene. And it's one of those where I think we all know what's going to happen just because of an earlier interaction between the witch and Daemon. So it's like, well, you just created your rival in a way. In this respect, I feel like that's where this is headed. But yeah, it was a very interesting parallel just because of the way Daemon approached it versus Aemon coming in and just laying waste to everything, not even caring, because all he wanted was Daemon. So, but we'll see if we'll see what type of payoff we get if it happens next episode or in a couple episodes.
Ryan, any thoughts on Aemond and what kind of effect he has now that Sir Simon Strong is unfortunately no longer a part of the story, and what does that bode for him and for Harrenhal moving forward?
Yeah, I tell you, it was such an interesting viewing experience for me because it even felt like they filmed these scenes very similarly when Daemon made his grand entrance at Harrenhal, and then the way Aemond made his grand entrance in just the way they stormed in, as you said, piss and vinegar, convinced they could dominate this house and take it over and just control it. It's the parallels between Daemon and Aemond are so similar, right? Like, they're obviously both brilliant fighters, very violent. They think with their sword first, but and they're always just seemingly obsessed with their position. And Aemond is obviously, I mentioned this last week, he seemed scared after the events that occurred, and this was, in my opinion, his way of just unleashing and letting some of that out to his own detriment. So yeah, I found it very interesting just how they handled this very similar situations, but did it obviously very differently. But now that the the Strongs are been wiped out basically. What does that lead for Harrenhal? And I guess I'm more enamored by what's next. Obviously, Aemond, I don't believe is dead, but he is wounded severely, and I might pronounce her name wrong. Is it Alice or Alice or something like that? Is the name of the witch there? And just this, we know the experience that Daemon went through with his hallucinations. So I'm very curious to see how Aemond experiences maybe something similar. So I'm super, I think Harrenhal will obviously fall to Aemond. It already has. And I'm expecting him to have a similar experience to Daemon. And I'm curious what that outcome will look like down the road, whether it's later this season or in the next season. But I feel like there's much more story to be told. We know she is a bit of a witch, a foreteller in her own right, and I really think we're going to eventually lead to this clash that we're kind of waiting for down the road. That seems just kind of inevitable at this point. It seems like they're on a collision course.
Inevitable is exactly the word I was going to use for my prompt to Dustin, so I'm glad you helped me segue in there. It just feels like it's going to happen, Dustin, doesn't it? It feels like, based on the trajectory that these two people have, that now that we've seen two sides of the same coin in their methods for sacking Harrenhal, that it's only a matter of time before Aemond and Daemon cross paths, and when they do, it should be epic.
Yeah, I mean, they share a similar name. They look very similar. There's times where I'm like, man, they really leaned into that they look very similar too. Damon understands that there are some people that need to die and there's some people that need to live to further your cause. You can't just go around aimlessly killing everyone, right? Because then what happens if you kill someone that could be of benefit to you and you've just now killed that person? So they are building it up to be, just seeing the two sides of the same coin, that Damon could have been Aemon in a different, if different circumstances hadn't been brought. And I think that is going to cause some really interesting moments between the two of them when they do meet, just because it is two sides of the same coin. And what is that going to mean for both characters, and how is that going to go down? It's going to be a really interesting dynamic that there's a lot of opportunity for.
Sean, we'll close out the Daemon discussion here and then move into the talk about the Blacks, because they were the stars of the show. But when Daemon took Harrenhal, he did it rather peacefully and without injury. Aemond is now wounded and at the mercy of Alice. Do you feel like that's going to potentially further his deterioration? Because I think it does, because Damon had no injuries and was still being twisted and perverted. Now Aemond is going to have physical injuries as well as mental manipulation. I don't see how that can't end up, making him even more unstable than he already is.
Yeah, I think it's going to have massive ramifications on the show as a whole. I think, I think the big difference here is, Damon comes in last season, and he's, whether he wants to admit it or not, I think his visions / hallucinations showed us that. And given where he stands today, and a conversation he has with Rhaenyra in this episode, is Damon has a bit of his brother in him. He probably isn't fond of that, but he does. He has a bit of a Viserys in him. He's willing to talk things through sometimes and not immediately jump to action, where I don't think Aemon has much of anything of his father in him, and leads to him getting horribly wounded by someone that should never, ever be able to wound him.
Yeah, and I think if Alice is the one that's healing him, um, is probably going to get drawn out. It's probably going to involve witchcraft, and it's probably going to end up warping him / perverting him even more than he already is. So I think that could lead to some really big stuff whenever he does finally clash with Damon, because the type of toll that it's going to take on his healing process is going to change him in some way, I think. So we'll have to wait and see. On to the real MVPs of this story. On to the people who I think it's safe to say are the winners of this episode. Is anybody on this pod, like we talked last week about who wins the episode, not necessarily on the battlefield, but who had the best episode? Is there anybody on this pod, anybody in this chat, anybody in this freaking world that thinks the Greens won this episode? Because I would love to hear that discussion. But if we agree, if we just agree right now, can we all just say aye that that Team Black won this week's episode?
Hands down, they did.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think Team Black definitely wins this episode. However, I would add the caveat of this, and that is I think this episode will have some not positive long-term effects on Team Black if I'm reading the story that's being laid out right, but that remains to be seen. I don't know. I'm guessing at that.
Yeah, I ditto with Sean that they won this, but there's downfall to be had.
Winning the battle does not necessarily mean winning the war. And this was I wouldn't call it a complaint, but maybe a critique that my wife had, and she may get mad at me for sharing this, but she's not tuning in, so I'm just going to say it. I think she remembers the assault on King's Landing that that took place in season 2 with Blackwater. There was a assault that took place. You know, there was an army, there was a navy, there was a storming of the castle, there was a sense of impending doom. All we got in this one was 4 dragons that landed and 2 people that walked into this giant ass castle and killed about a dozen people on their way to the throne room. And she called it a little anticlimactic. I think she was expecting a big storming of the castle compared to some of this machinations that took place instead. There was a lot of scheming stuff that goes back into the past episode because they had to break it up, or the past season rather. Stuff that has had long ramifications that are finally paying off now. But I guess I'm curious, did anybody else feel similar in a sense of like anticlimaticism? Dustin, we'll go to you first and kind of go back around the other way. But because of all of this plotting and scheming and stuff, do you feel like we were robbed of a bigger battle sequence in this fight for the throne?
I don't think so, because they laid the groundwork that a lot of this had been planned. That Alicent, I mean, she basically made sure that it could happen this way. That she sent Aemon away with Vhagar, and meeting with Rhaenyra to make sure that, and then even when she went up to the garrisons and was like saying, hey, when this happens, you need to basically lay down your arms. The scorpion cannon, or the bows up top, like going up there and saying, hey, stand down, we're not going to do anything. She made, and I think with Vhagar being gone, the Greens had no choice. There's 4 dragons here. Like, what can we actually do in this situation? And some tried to stay firm, and they pretty much died or were taken prisoner. So for me, it was like the setup made it so that it was kind of interesting. Took it easily. So for me, it wasn't anticlimactic just because of the work that had been done in previous episodes, with the fact that the juxtaposition of the fact that, like, yeah, you'd think there would be this big battle, but really she took it quite easily. I mean, 4 dragons isn't easy, but just a different take on it. And I actually kind of enjoyed that it was just like, wow, that was pretty simple.
Ryan, do you feel like it might have been too simple?
I did find it a bit anticlimactic from a experience standpoint as a viewer, but if I put myself in their shoes, I don't think so. It's it was a lot of buildup. It was a lot of sacrifice, right? Like everything that has happened up to this point, led to the culmination of the outcome that we saw on our television screen. And to me, it more boiled down to the cost of this whole event. That Rhaenyra has finally ascended the throne. It's something she's wanted from the start. Since she was a little girl, that she was promised this. And it was supposed to be this big moment, but I think it was intentionally told in a way that we kind of got the feeling of Rhaenyra. She finally achieved this great success, but at great personal cost. And I think from her perspective, it was I feel like I should be thrilled or excited, and this should be a big moment, but really, I'm just here now. So that's the story I got from this, and it's I feel it not anticlimactic in the sense of how they took King's Landing, how she ascended to the throne. It was years and years and years of lead up and build up and manipulation to get there. As a viewer, I was hoping for a little bit more excitement, but at the same token, it kind of felt like the World War II, right? you drop a nuclear bomb on King's Landing, you kill everyone, and sure, you might win the King's Landing, but at what cost? So them laying down their arms and saying, you know what, we can't win this, it's yours, was the perfect outcome that we got to view in my experience.
Randy, I didn't notice this until I saw the behind the scenes stuff, but the sword that Rhaenyra goes into battle with is Jace's. Did you feel like she carried herself a little bit differently by bringing that little bit of her son with her into battle?
I believe she did because it probably gave her the strength to truly do what needed to be done. Um, I mean, I got to give Emma Darcy all the credit in the world this episode, the range of emotion that she showed, and the fact that most women, um, I would believe, even though especially losing both sons, I don't know many men or women that would get out of bed to go do what they need to do. So the fact that I think this kind of grounded her in a way to kind of help her get justice or a form of justice for Jace. I think that's the best way for her to look at it, and maybe that's exactly what that was meant to be. I mean, if I was in her shoes as a father, I don't know if I'd even be able to function. The fact that she had the strength to function, the fact that she was able to take that little piece with her to give her that little bit of extra courage, that little extra something that was able to keep her steady enough to finish the job. That says a lot about what Jace meant to her, even though we know how much, Luke dying, how much that hit her. So this just seemed like it was a little bit different. There was something more to it.
Well, and Rhaenyra also had a stillborn child in past seasons. So I want to say there's at least 3 children that are gone now as a result of this war, which makes that puddle of blood just that much more impactful because it's not just the blood of the enemies, but it's like the blood of loved ones has been shed as well. And at some point, it all just kind of mixes together into one big kind of bloodbath. But you're right. Emma Darcy's acting chops were on full display. One of the biggest things that I saw on Twitter X today was that everybody's going to be advocating for an Emmy because, I mean, when you're playing off of a corpse and still able to show that kind of range is nothing short of fantastic. And it just continued throughout the rest of the episode. Um, Sean, was there a scene or a moment that kind of showcased Darcy's chops more than others to you in this episode?
Oh, I'll save a little time here and say that she's my character of the episode. I have a feeling I'm not going to be alone in that one. Um, the callbacks, though, in this episode, specifically with her character and the moments that we're talking about, are incredible. And it doesn't say it in the short making of, and it doesn't say it in the documentary episode of The House That Dragons Built. But you can tell what they're going for here. If you look in the episode, and I searched up some screenshots today, if you're going, wow, Rhaenyra looks a lot like Daenerys in season 8 of Game of Thrones, specifically after she loses Missandei, you would be correct. The hairstyle, which Jade pointed out and was right about, is damn near identical. The just like the craziness, if you will, the dragon blood curse, if you want to call it that, creeping in, and the way it is presented on screen is a mirror image of Daenerys's from Game of Thrones. Now I really want to find out when Ryan takes his wife back and watches Game of Thrones, and they get to that point if she calls the parallels to this episode and possibly even future episodes. Just there's a lot of connectivity to Daenerys and Game of Thrones with Rhaenyra here in House of the Dragon, which is remarkable how this show finds a way to present itself as a direct prequel. And right now we're about 170 something years away from Game of Thrones. It's just it's amazing, and I honestly didn't think that it was anticlimactic at all the way they did it. They were going off of what Allison said. They had 4 damn dragons. They still met some resistance where Daemon gets to show why you probably don't want to go up against him one on one or even 3-on-1 in a fight. But Zach, we don't get many chances to ask you a question. And apologies, guys, it's my doggo. But the moment they get into the throne room, okay, with the gold cloaks that come in behind, that entire scene for me is a direct callback to Ned's scene in Game of Thrones when the gold cloaks go in with him and you got the Stark men there. And like, I'm sitting there thinking, because I don't know spoilers at this point. I'm like, maybe they, take them prisoner or something. All I could think to myself is, wow, there's so much of this episode that already felt like primetime Game of Thrones. And to cap it off with that was just amazing. Even the way that Rhaenyra sits on the throne, man, mimics the way Ned's on the throne in some of the promo shots of Game of Thrones, holding himself up with the sword. And like that entire scene, like she's the star performer of it, but the atmosphere and the tone of that, to me, that it called right back to that. I really wanted your thoughts tonight on that.
Well, I'm a Stark guy. I mean, I've got it branded on just about everything. You got a Stark banner back there, so I'm looking forward to anything Stark related in this series. We haven't had very much of it lately, but Ned is still one of my favorite characters in all of Westeros, and so to to have that moment in that throne room that was very very similar to season 1, like you said. Um, I held my breath a little bit when they came into the throne room because Damon already had a pretty tall order. He'd already dispatched probably, I wanted to say 9 or 10 people on his way to the throne room. And there was at least a dozen more between him and the throne. And he was ready to take all of them on. But you could see a turning in his eye and like there was a glimmer at first. And then when the gold cloaks enter and you don't know whose side they're on, that light kind of goes out in his eyes a little bit. And he realizes this is probably not going to go my way if they don't fight for me. And when they do declare for him and for Rhaenyra, I caught myself finally breathing. I finally had like a sigh of relief. And you're right. Like that moment where there's the Stark men and the gold cloaks, and you've got a usurper sitting on the throne where they shouldn't be. And then you've got a character like Littlefinger that comes out and puts a knife to Ned's throat and says, I did warn you not to trust me. And then you cut to credits. Like, I was halfway expecting the episode to end on like that tension right there and be like, okay, we don't know what the queen's fate is. She is 40 feet away, maybe less, from ascending the throne she's been fighting for years. And are they actually going to be thwarted this when they get this close? I will say, I think Ned used the sword to prop him up on the throne, and I think Rhaenyra did the same thing because both of them feel unworthy of sitting there. I think Rhaenyra finally got to the throne and realized how not just physically but spiritually uncomfortable that spot is. And she was using the sword almost to brace herself so that she wasn't putting 100% of her body weight on the seat. And Ned did the same thing. Ned didn't want to sit in the damn chair. So he was sitting in it as little as he possibly could. And I think when Rhaenyra finally made it into the throne, she started realizing all of the pressures that would be associated with it, all of the expectations, all of the methods that she could be unseated that she's now going to have to defend from. And I think it got to her. And as soon as Alicent was brought in, it really got to her. And so I think the third episode is shaping itself up to be one of, okay, you have now taken this throne that you have wanted for so long. Now what? Now what do you do? Now how do you keep it? Now how do you get comfortable sitting there? And it may not be that episode in particular because I know, Sean, you said that it's going to be a little bit of a different style of episode next week, possibly. But I do think that that's going to be a pretty major player for as long as she's sitting on the throne. She's never actually sat in it before. She stood in front of it a couple of times, but this is her first time like actually sitting on the throne. And I think it's going to take a toll on her.
Very interesting too that you have Littlefinger get his way in that episode at the end of Game of Thrones, and in this episode you have Littlefinger, aka Otto, lose his head.
Yeah, it was. I had a feeling that Otto was the gift that was in the dungeon, but there was definitely some satisfaction in seeing him appear in the throne room there. Randy, what was your reaction to seeing Otto pop up from the dungeon like that? Because to me, I don't think he's an adequate substitute for Aegon. I think she still needs to take Aegon's head, but for Otto to have been rotting in the cell beneath while his grandchildren play king up above, there's got to be some poetic justice to that.
It's interesting because from season 2, we remember seeing him being captured. We didn't know is where he ended up. And the fact that, this is the gift that was left for Daemon, essentially, it's interesting because even though the character was always going to have weight, but I think it was more or less done not for shock value for the moment. I think the real reason they did it here because obviously, we know he was one of the best characters in the series so far, leading up to this, and I think it was more or less to have Allison come in and see it. We saw the oh shit, what are you doing here look on Rhaenyra's face, and then you see Allison's look on her face of seeing her father beheaded on the ground. It's like, and then of course, then we fade to black, and we just go, well, at least we don't have to wait 3 years to find out how this all plays out. It's going to be next week, but I think it was a good use for the character just to kind of give that real feeling, that tense moment to end the episode, to where, because it's everything seems to be going Rhaenyra's way, and then that happens. And I feel like that's why they used him for that. You're right. No substitute for Aegon or Aemon for that matter, because I'm sure that Rhaenyra would have accepted either one. But I guess third, finishing third, it's still not enough. But I still feel like that this is going to be a great starting point for next week, and I can't wait.
Ryan, the old adage is the one that passes the sentence should swing the sword. What did you make of Rhaenyra being the sword swinger in this sequence? Because I don't think Rhaenyra as a character has ever been formally trained in combat, and so to see her making that mistake but still trying to carry out the execution was a very interesting choice for me.
Absolutely. To me, it was, again, culmination of her ascendance to the throne, right? Like, she finally achieved her lifelong goal, and she sits on the Iron Throne, and it's like, I think all of these expectations and dreams she had, it immediately didn't live up to expectation. And you kind of touched on it with the pressures that come from that. And the very first pressure that she had to deal with is, well, now that I am here, I am the ruler. I have to set the example. I have to lead this kingdom, and I have to be the one to do the dirty deeds that need to be done. And yet she struggled with that. And it was kind of Daemon who was pushing her along, kind of just like carrying her to this point, like, come on, they're all looking at you. This is your role. They will only follow you if you prove that you are, the person that's capable of doing these things. And it was just you could see it in her expressions and her feelings that she wasn't prepared. It didn't feel like she was prepared for that moment. And obviously the trauma that she's was dealing with the loss of Jace and Luke and all of the people that have supported her along the way, and even to an extent Alicent, and the betrayal, I think, that comes with executing Alicent's father, because it was her in the end that kind of opened the doors, figuratively and literally, for Rhaenyra to ascend the throne. It was one of those moments where it was very overwhelming for her, and she was emotionally compromised in that moment, to me. And it kind of came off as weakness, honestly, that she hesitated with it. She did. And then obviously, as you just mentioned, like, she obviously was not trained in the art of sword fighting, which I'm kind of surprised by for somebody that was, ascendant to the throne. That's something I would have expected there to be some level of training leading up to this. So for her to swing the sword, she did buck up the courage to do it, but then she missed. So it is apropos that it took 2 swings to behead Otto. And then as the episode ends, we see Alicent walk in and see the blood of her father on the floor, his head 5 feet from his body, and almost the betrayal in her eyes of Rhaenyra being the one that did that. The justification, sorry, I can't pronounce that word, of that entire moment was really heavy for me, and it's going to weigh on her going forward. So that to me was a big moment that's going to lead to much more peril down the road.
Imagine if this had actually been the season finale. We keep saying that, but you're right. The betrayal in Allison's eyes and the the returning look that Rhaenyra gives, just super super powerful. Um, Dustin, Otto believes that everybody else in his family is dead. He doesn't see any of his family in the throne room. He only sees Rhaenyra now sitting on the throne. He can only imagine that there must have been a great battle. Everybody else must have been killed. He's one of the last remaining ones to be executed. Um, I guess walk me through how you think he must have felt during that time and how Allison must have felt in realizing that her father's been a few hundred feet below her this entire time. And the only time that she gets to see him now is with his head separated from his body.
Yeah, I think when he's brought out there, that it is, he even says like, "So I must be the last," or something like that, something to that effect. I think it's part of me thinks that his character has come to the realization that, like, I've been playing the game for many 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 years, and I took my shot, and we almost had it, and he understands that this is the way the world works, is that you have people that will show up and try to take power, and there's been the fight for the throne already. He knows that this is a possibility, and I think he started to understand that, especially with him realizing his grandkids were kind of idiots and not fit to be king, and that's why he was kind of put in prison there. And I think Allison seeing him there, um, she had prepared herself for Aegon to be killed by her. Um, the fact that she doesn't know, did she have him captive and brought him and executed him? She doesn't really know all of it. Like, where was he? How did this all transpire? Um, so I think it was just done to add to that tension of, okay, what is Alicent going to do now? She's been on this path of, we're going to go ahead and just give it up. We're going to just kind of go away in exile and just, be free from all this. And now, does this bring her back into the fold of, okay, she just executed him, and what happens now between these two people? Again, does this whole thing set in motion something worse to happen? And that's where I think the whole, what Sean had mentioned, is that I think the blacks are going to have some serious repercussions for what happened.
Well, I mean, Daron is still out there on Tessarion, and Cole is about to meet up with Aemond at Harrenhal, and Ormond Hightower still has his fighting forces, and the Lannisters still have a fighting force out there somewhere. And then there's remnants of the Triarchy that are still out there. So there's still a lot left to quell, even if you're now sitting on the throne. So that's the beauty of this not actually being a season finale, and we have something that we're going to get to watch as soon as next week, which will be awesome. um Sean already gave us his favorite episode, so what we'll do is we'll go back the way we came. Not favorite episode, a favorite character of the episode. We'll go back the way we came. Dustin, we'll go to you, and then Ryan, Randy, and then Sean, if you have follow-up thoughts on your favorite character, you can do that, and then we'll kick off favorite scene. So we'll go counterclockwise for favorite character, and then we'll go back clockwise for favorite moment as we start wrapping up this the thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, my favorite character is Rhaenyra, hands down. Her performance throughout the episode, in the moments that were painful for her, in many ways, like some spiritually painful, losing her son, and then the entire sequence in the throne room and what she's struggling with, and the weight of what she's actually been doing, and the reality of the situation that's at hand for her, it made her my favorite character of the episode.
Ryan, how about you?
So I think a lot of people are going to say Rhaenyra, and rightfully so. So I'm going to actually pivot and give my flowers to Damon in this episode. I really feel like he grew a little bit in this episode. We saw his prowess, obviously, with a sword, but even in the moment when he finds out that Jace is dead, he makes the trip. He goes back. He finds Rhaenyra. Obviously, she's emotionally distraught. Finding the right words to help pull her out of that moment, to get her to take the action necessary to take Queen's Landing, shall we say, really stood out to me as something, a side of him we haven't seen before. And then obviously sacking the crown, the walking through there, killing everyone in his wake, proving that he is a superior sword. And even, we haven't really touched on this, setting the seeds 20 years prior with Luther and the Gold Cloaks to come to their rescue in the end. That was Damon's doing that set that moment forward. So in this episode, Damon did a lot of very important things to allow her to take the throne. So I'm giving Damon the player of the episode.
I really thought it would be a clean sweep or near it. Randy, how about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely going with Rhaenyra for this one. Just the amount of acting that Emma Darcy did, and just all the gamut of emotions that she ran through, and you could see it in her expressions, in her body language. I always depict something of, I rate something on like how much of an emotional response I give, and to see the grief and just absolute how destroyed she was to look at Jace, because of and I've obviously, for me, I had a personal loss last week, which is why I wasn't here. So it pulled something out of me, because I'm not saying her loss is the same as mine, but it's just the idea of that type of grief. So it really pulled something out of me to watch just how powerful that was. But ultimately, just from start to finish, she did a great job and really kind of helped solidify this as like one of the best episodes of House of the Dragon.
You can agree to that. Any further thoughts on Rhaenyra for you, Sean?
No, not particularly. I'll say this: my favorite scene in the episode was the scene we already talked about, the everything going down in the throne room. So much nostalgia there with Game of Thrones, but also nail biting moments, and also like even Rhaenyra taking Otto's head, like Theon, right? Theon with Sir Roderick.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so wonderfully done. I think you said to me in a message, "Chef's kiss." I don't think you can be put any better than that.
I'm actually gonna concur with Ryan and say that I feel like Damon was my MVP also. I don't think Rhaenyra takes King's Landing without Damon's help. She was depressed and in bed until he came home to support her, until he came home to deliver the news about Vagar's departure, until he was able to guide her through the Red Keep, killing everyone in his wake, and then encouraging her to ascend the throne when it's sitting right there in front of him. If he wanted it, he probably could have stabbed her and taken the throne for himself, but he chooses to step aside for his queen. And uh, as much as Rhaenyra has been through, I feel like in this episode, Damon stepped up. I feel like in this episode, he didn't always do that, but in this episode, he stepped up when it mattered most. And that's all you can ask for from somebody. Um, I I really enjoyed watching them in sequence. If you go back and watch them marching through the halls of the Red Keep, they're almost like in perfect stride with one another. Like they are matching each other's energy perfectly, stride for stride, blow for blow. It's like they are the ultimate power couple. And I thought that was really, really cool to see. And yeah, I think if anybody says that some other scene besides the throne room was their favorite, they might be wrong because it had a little bit of everything: action and intensity and deception and cinematography, music. It just had all of the right payoffs. And so yeah, that's my favorite scene as well. Randy, was that your favorite too, or did you have another?
So I'll just add on to that, like the dragons landing in King's Landing, and then
Mhm.
starting the march towards the throne room. I think you take that and add it to the whole throne room scene, and you just have a sequence that is powerful, tense, even playful at times, because you could tell Damon was really enjoying himself taking people out. Like there was just that smirk he had on his face from time to time as he was taking guys down. So you combine all that together and you just have just this one amazing sequence and scene that really puts a big exclamation mark on the end of what should have been season 2.
Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I actually agree with Randy. I would go. I would take it back to the point where they land and they have the shot looking down into the courtyard, and you could just see the Greens lay their swords down and say, "Not our show. It's all yours, big man." So, and then as they went through the castle to take everything, that was a lot. The only thing that was missing for me was like a musical score as they were just marching forward. That would have just really just made that moment extra sweet. But that was a wonderful moment. Everything that led up to it, and then again the final crescendo as Otto's head hit the floor was epic. I loved it.
Dustin, are you going to be a joiner?
Sorry, what was that?
I said, are you going to join the crowd, or did you have another pick?
Yeah, I think I match everyone else's sentiment. Not much more to add on that one.
If you guys have not seen the episode yet, highly recommend being careful because we never gave a spoiler warning. But please just go back and watch that final scene and tell us if there was anything that like could be done better, because I'd be hard pressed to find anything. We're a little short on time because there's still a Halloween element to talk about tonight among some other discussion topics. So we do need to be pretty solid on maybe only giving a minute or so for our final thoughts on this one, gents. But let's go around the horn and give our final thoughts and our score out of 10. IMDb is currently listing this as a 9.5 the last time I looked at it. This particular episode is currently the highest rated episode in House of the Dragon. So do with that info as you will, but I think that's a pretty spot on number. I think I'm kind of in like that 9.2 to 9.5 region myself. Very, very little of this episode that I would critique or tweak or change. It is just quintessential Game of Thrones for me. So those are going to be my final thoughts. I'm gonna stick with IMDb and give it a 9.5. I don't see any reason why not to. Sean, how about you?
I'm with you. I was giving it a 9.5. This might be the best episode of House of the Dragon. And if it's not 1A, then it's 1B.
Very fair. Randy, how about you?
I'm gonna go just slightly lower as a 9.3. There were maybe a couple things that I could nitpick, but that's the thing, it's nitpicking. When you get to the point where you're nitpicking, there's really nothing else you can really say about it. So, but 9.3 still, still absolutely amazing. So I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, me too. I think I'll be here for week 3 and then might be out. I don't know. It's 4th of July weekend here in the States. I don't know. Maybe I'm out week 3 and back week 4. I'm here for week 3 and out week 4. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm looking forward to it regardless. Ryan, thoughts and score out of 10.
Yeah, my big critiques last week were pacing and kind of a little bit of disjointedness in the episode. This week, I don't feel any of that. Everything felt really important, big. The only thing that I would even say didn't belong was the scene with Allison's, and that's the smallest thing. That was about 2 minutes. So, in the end, I thought it was an absolutely epic episode, the best one I've seen yet. I would give it a 9.5 as well.
Okay. Dustin, you're up. Close us out. Bring us home.
Yeah, another fantastic episode. After retrospect and watching the last episode, episode 1, and then this again, just to kind of see, because you all brought up valid criticisms of the last episode. I think I was sitting at a 9.5, 9.6. Outstanding episode, great acting, great cinematography. I do think we were missing, like I think Ryan mentioned, just like some kind of a score, some kind of something to set it over the edge. But yeah, just fantastic. Some of the heights of Game of Thrones and what we look for when we're watching Game of Thrones content. So nothing really to be upset about with this episode at all.
Hopefully we're able to keep that momentum and have things to praise rather than things to critique moving forward. Sean, am I missing anything or are we good?
We are good, sir. So I will take this moment to outro you and outro Ryan. Ryan, where can everybody find you at, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing this. So thank you for having me again this week. You can find me at my X handle, which is listed right below here at Yacht Racing 405, or on our Ramen is Racing X page, or on Facebook, or even our own Ramen is Racing YouTube channel that we just did a live stream right before we came on the air with this. So yeah, follow us there.
And Zach, what do you got going on, bud?
I'm about to be hitting the ground running for the upcoming football season. It starts in August, so I'm going to be doing a lot of prep in July. Right now, I'm just doing this and watching the World Cup and doing a little traveling with my wife. If you want to find out about that stuff, you can find me on the socials there at Zach the Voice. I put a comment or two in the chat for this live feed. Would really appreciate a follow over on that channel as we inch ever closer to hitting 1,000. I think I'm at like 940 or something right now. So once we hit that big 1K, we're able to start monetizing. So that'd be a really big deal. So if y'all would follow me on socials and subscribe to that YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks, boys. And look forward to hopefully seeing you both next week. And if not, in a couple of weeks. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. We are going to take a short 2 or 3 minute intermission, get a drink, use the bathroom, and we're going to be back talking some Halloween and some specific details on why the Halloween TV series is not moving forward. There's been speculation. We've talked about reports from the sources we've spoken to. There's been reports from, other people speaking with their sources, but seems like we got some pretty concrete info now on exactly why, and not just because, hey, we're doing the 50th anniversary. There's another reason it didn't go forward, and it might be a little bit of an alarming one too. So be on the lookout for that. Tiny bit of Star Wars talk, some wrestling talk, and I think I'm missing one in there, but I'll have to look back at the show notes. But we'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. And we are back with the second shorter portion of our episode. Thank you for tuning in to our House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 2 review. It was something, you know. I think when you walk out of that episode, and I think the lowest score of that episode for one of us might have been, what was it, Randy? You have like a 9.2 or something?
It was a 9.3. Like I said, when you get in that range, you're just nitpicking.
Yeah, hey, good for the show, good for the audience, and we're all happy. Joining us for the first time in a couple of weeks here, he's back. I don't know if he's watching soccer at the moment or not. I know soccer's on, or football for some people, is on my TV and has been on my TV entirely too much the last couple of weeks. Other than my kids' soccer, I can't say I'm a big soccer fan. I'll cheer for Canada, obviously, but wild turn of events just happened as Morocco literally tied the game right on the 90th minute, right to the second, with a header into the net against the Netherlands. So that was something else. Joining us, it's the general. It's McMahon. Well, I don't want to call him that anymore, but Fizz. It's our Fizz. It's Johnny V. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, how you doing? Good. Yes, of course, I do have the soccer game on. Gotta respect the ancestral homeland.
Well, they just put on their best display of the Toronto Maple Leafs there at the end of that.
Well,
so
you know, Morocco's
see if
a
they
better
can
team
recover.
than people give them credit for. So
I'll say this: I've been watching as we've been doing the show, and if the refs let this amount of physicality get away in most games, which they have not, because I've watched way too many soccer games the last couple of weeks, soccer may in fact be more entertaining. Yeah, I see it too. So on the agenda this evening, we got a few pretty big topics. We are talking, as I open the show notes here, why the Halloween series was shelved, and not just because they're focusing on a 50th anniversary movie. No. There's another reason why it slowed down, and it's not just the changeover at Miramax either. And the fact that there's reportedly anyways, a new major player involved with the Halloween 50th anniversary movie. We got some Star Wars Eclipse news, which is, I won't say it's being misreported, but I think some people are being a little disingenuous about it. Our thoughts on Sami Zayn getting his first title win, and if he's going to lose it next week on Raw. And then we'll end the show with Johnny and Randy getting about 4 minutes each to rapidly go over Forbidden Door. I know that's not a lot of time, but my phone's at 20%, so that's what we got left to deal with here. So
it's all right. I bargained about half an hour, so.
So, well, it's great to have you back, man. We're not used to missing you for a couple of weeks.
I mean, it's only been 2 weeks. I only missed my regularly scheduled off week, and I haven't missed anything else. So no, I mean, you know, it's always gonna be a week. There's enough stuff that it's a good time to be here. What with everything that happened over the weekend.
Yeah, no, it was a. I'm just trying to find the article here. I don't think I linked it to you guys in the group, which is a problem. I think it's Dread Central, which is a very
did not send that to the
very reputable source for horror information. The problem is they're so damn active that now I gotta go digging for it, which is unfortunate. But it's a wonderful piece, and it actually, the reason why one of the reasons I want to read directly from this article is this channel years ago, people. That's right, years ago, had a report about Halloween Ends specifically, and something we were told firsthand information by someone that deals with Malacca Cat and how he felt about how those movies were
Is this
closing
the
up.
article from 5 days ago?
Yes, it is. Why don't we put your voice to work before they start penalty kicks here? Actually, it's a really long one, so you just.
Should have extra time first, no?
Oh God, extra time.
Yeah,
Oh,
extra time,
God.
then PK.
How much extra time are we forced to sit through here?
I'm not sure exactly. It's not a full half.
Oh, for the love of God!
It's not
Anything more than 5 minutes is too much. This is not hockey overtime. Oh God. Then again, I guess
15 minutes.
Oh, that's not terrible, I suppose. If you can link me to the article, I'll give the read through and then I'll pass it off to you guys to go over. Because I'm still scrolling, not seeing it.
I just used the power of Google.
It's Brad who did it. The author helps.
Yeah. June 24th, 26th.
Yes. All right, so here we go. Let's dive into this. Rumor, and again, I'll tell you this: when the article was posted, it wasn't posted as a rumor, so that's been edited. But everyone we've spoken to seems to back this up. And bear with me because this goes on a bit, and it's worth the read. Let's dive into it. I almost wish I had one of those AI voices that I could click to read the article for us so we could sit back and listen. Anyways, anyone who has been following me for years knows how much I dislike the David Gordon Green Blumhouse Halloween trilogy. And if you were to go all the way back to when the film was announced, you'd see how excited I actually was. I came out of the gate pumped for the new take. Danny McBride working on the screenplay, David Gordon Green being a really unique independent filmmaker was exciting me. You know who it didn't excite at that time? Johnny. But when the powers that be decided to retcon the events of John Carpenter's seminal 1978 classic, things started to go off the rails. Not only did they retcon Carpenter's classic, but they also attempted something that at the time I reported exclusively on the idea how shooting 3 films back to back to back was on the table. I don't recall ever hearing, that's not information we had, and I'm not saying Brad's wrong, but the information we've had for years was they wanted to shoot back to back right out of the gate. And Carpenter kind of talked them off a ledge. So maybe it was 3 films back to back right out of the gate. What it ended up being
back to back being rumored for 2 and 3, but that was, once we got into COVID.
Yeah, back to back was right out of the gate was rumored. Didn't end up happening. Story we heard was John Carpenter talked them off a ledge and saying, "Hey, why don't you just start with 1 for now?" So on paper he gets it, but what it did was break the first screenplay, which wasn't very good in the first place. He read it, didn't like it. He didn't hate it either, but I put a lot of trust in the filmmakers to elevate the material. A great filmmaker can take a screenplay, find things in it that aren't obvious on the page, but at the end of the day, weak screenplay almost always wins. And that's what happened here. The weak screenplay got broken up, expanded, stretched, and delivered in pieces over 2 films. My screen keeps lagging here, so bear with me. What we eventually got felt like 2 movies pulled from 1 story and pieced together as they went along. What's frustrating is that I actually think there are a lot of really good things in Halloween 2018. I've said for years that I think there's a watchable movie buried in there somewhere. I think he's being a little critical on that movie. I think it's one of the best in the franchise, personally. One of the biggest problems is the editing. I think the editing hurts the movie considerably. There are good performances. Michael's great. There are moments that work really well. But some core concepts were wrong from the beginning, especially Laurie Strode. The entire premise that she's been waiting 40 years for Michael Myers to come back when he does. She's vulnerable, constantly makes mistakes, and finds herself in situations she should have been prepared for. That shit was just irritating. By the time Halloween Ends rolled around, I went into that movie with piss and vinegar. After the first 2 films, I wanted to hate it. Then the first 5 minutes happened, and I was in. I was sold. I was excited. I thought maybe they were finally going to do something different. That's one way of putting it. I was completely converted until the movie continued. I laugh now because that's exactly, you almost think I wrote this. I laugh now because that's exactly what happened. By the end, I thought it was another disaster. And the funny thing is, I actually think Halloween Ends is probably the most interesting movie of the trilogy. Uh, Not sure interesting's the word I would use. I think it's well shot. I agree with that one. I think the performances are great. I think there are genuinely interesting ideas in there. But as a Halloween movie, especially one that was sold as the big finale between Laurie and Michael, it completely falls apart. This was supposed to be the ultimate showdown. Instead, we got Michael Myers fighting a refrigerator in a kitchen. And even then, the ending felt weak. It felt scared. It couldn't fully commit. It couldn't decide how final it wanted to be. It wanted to have it both ways. The point I'm getting at is a lot of fans weren't happy, and that's important because from everything I've heard over the years, the Acads weren't happy either. That's what I heard too. And let's be honest, when we're talking the Acads, we're only talking one Acad at this point in time, Malak Acad, son of Mustafa. And he was not happy. The problem was the deal with Blumhouse, unlike a lot of other Halloween movies, is they didn't have Final Cut. Blumhouse had Final Cut. And they basically had to sit there. And I heard he was reluctant to even go to the Halloween Ends, I guess you could call it orange carpet premiere. He did end up attending it, but even that day, I wasn't sure he was going to be there to a point where we put out a report. We're not sure he's even there. Turns out he did show up. Then we had the drama with Jamie Lee Curtis and Danielle Harris and all that. But yeah, we heard he wasn't happy at all with the movie. I can't talk about the first two movies. I don't know really how I felt about that. But we have someone who's a source of ours who gets some direct contact with him who specifically said he's not happy with this, like at all. Brad goes on to say, the Acad family takes Halloween very seriously while it can look around the horror business and point to plenty of situations where the people in charge seem more interested in squeezing every dollar possible out of an icon. I've never gotten that impression from the Acads. They care about the legacy. They care about Michael Myers. And they care about getting it right. Yes, the trilogy made money, but this is Halloween. It should have made more money. I don't agree with that one. It should have strengthened the brand. It should have set the table for another decade of movies. It should have created a future where Blumhouse was making more Halloween films. Instead, that relationship appears to be over. I reported years ago that there would not be another Halloween movie with Blumhouse involved. And after everything I've heard since, that has only been reinforced. What the Acads want isn't just something successful. They want something good and successful. Good movie, good filmmakers, good storytelling. And that brings us to the recent reports about the Halloween TV series. As has been reported, there were attempts to develop a Halloween television series centered on Michael Myers and the broader Halloween universe, much like we're seeing with Crystal Lake and what other horror franchises are trying to do. The idea was to expand the mythology beyond the movie, beyond just another movie, rather. There were interesting people involved. There were conversations. There was momentum. But I can confirm the reports currently circulating that as of this writing, there is no active Halloween TV series moving forward at this time. Here's the big one. They could not find a home for it. So they've pulled back and are recalibrating. Could it happen someday? Absolutely. It's why we continue to say shelved and not canceled, by the way. But right now, there's no Halloween TV series moving forward, which leaves us with what feels like the obvious conclusion. The next incarnation of Michael Myers will likely be a movie. The source claims Paramount is the likely new home for the new Halloween movie. I had speculated Universal would come back for the 50th anniversary, but that appears to not be the case. It seems like it's going to be Paramount, considering their strong relationship with Miramax. I don't think anything's fully been decided. I don't think the path has been totally carved yet, but there is a clear desire to bring Michael Myers back. And when there's something concrete to report, we will report it. The good news is that there appears to be a genuine desire to get it right. And while I've been extremely vocal about my dislike of the recent trilogy, there are fans who love those movies. I don't take anything away from them. I'm glad they exist. I'm glad people connected with them. I'm glad Halloween. God damn it, it keeps skipping on me. Anyways, that's basically it. So the big takeaways from there, they couldn't find a home for it. What does that mean? That means the idea that they brought forward, along with Miramax Television, even after the changeover with the head of Miramax TV, and the idea that they went forward with, which still centered around Michael Myers, despite what Sean Clark said, no one was willing to budge. Now, does that mean nobody was willing to put it on air or on a streaming service? Not necessarily, but at what it would have cost for production and them to still make a little bit of money off of it, it wasn't going to happen. So it wasn't just like, hey, we're creatively stumped. It was, we can't get backing for this idea we have. And now it's over because we're not going to make something that we're guaranteed to lose money on. And then on top of that, the news of Paramount possibly being involved in the 50th anniversary movie, which would make some sense, right? Like, you do need, you don't need, but it would be nice to have some sort of powerhouse behind you. You know what I mean? Johnny, I want to go to you first since you're just joining the show. Your thoughts on them not being able to find a home. And let's be real, at the end of the day, if you don't have somewhere to air this thing that's going to pay you the dollars, again, this is not a movie, it's a TV series, for your project to make it at least profitable or doable, you're not going to do it. And then your thoughts on Paramount also possibly being involved in the new movie.
I mean, Halloween is walking into, I don't want to say an uncharted territory for it as far as television goes, because it's not a franchise that's ever been on television before, for one, and it's a franchise that is currently like in a, I don't want to say like creative box, but it's in sort of a, you know, I don't even want to say a toxic place, but it's in a negative space right now, where most of the things that are said about it are not good in one form or fashion. So, you know, I can definitely understand, you know, networks and streamers not necessarily being interested in it. I think, you know, we also don't know the value proposition they were making to networks, not just from a what are we bringing to the table, but, you know, what do we want from you standpoint as well. So, you know, without knowing those details, it's hard to say. Like, you know, would I be surprised if networks were looking for specific things from them? Yes. I mean, and as we've discussed, you know, even on this show at different points, there have been times where this franchise has been sort of, you know, in discussion, been not necessarily anti-Michael, but Michael light. And, you know, I can imagine networks are kind of like, yeah, we don't want that. It's Michael or nothing, you know? And if they were trying to present something different, then I can understand why they're having trouble. You know, I think Crystal Lake got lucky because when it first started, it came from someone with a, you know, a credible background, a success, you know, historic success in television.
Hashtag Hannibal.
Exactly. So, you know, you had a creative mind with a resume of, at very least, you know, critical success from a fan base. Like, yes, the series couldn't exactly make the money it should have gotten, but again, I think that's probably because it was so far ahead of its time, right? If Hannibal had started during the streaming era, I think you get, you know, 6-7 seasons out of that series. But, you know, that's something the series doesn't have. It has nothing, you know, it has no force behind it. Whereas Crystal Lake had that. Now, obviously, it's different now from where we started, but, you know, by that point, the network was invested. So I think that's the thing, right? You know, without knowing all the details of what they were offering, what they wanted from the networks. I can understand networks being reluctant. As for Universal getting involved for the movie, I mean, I'm not surprised. It's
Paramount.
Sorry. No, that's not surprising. Paramount has always sort of had a run of success with franchises.
Most recently with Scream.
Exactly. Like, I want to say, I could be wrong, but I want to say the early Friday the 13th movies were with Paramount too.
I wish I could sit here and confirm that off the top of my head. I don't know.
I mean, Randy's giving me the head nod, and he's old enough to remember.
Gee, thanks.
Shabang.
No problem, buddy. But no, I mean,
Shots fired.
they have success as far as, I don't want to say low budget, but lower budget horror goes. So I definitely see them getting involved where they, it's something they know very well. So no, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that they'd want to get in on this, because it is a franchise with success. I mean, even, yes, ends and kills were less, but I looked up the results of the box office, and obviously these are just, they're the box office mojo numbers because they're the easiest to find without looking. But I mean, they still made, 160 million for 2018, 92 for kills, and 64 for ends, and the last two were in sort of, I don't want to say, yeah, and those are, and those last two are in an era where, you're getting immediate release on streaming platforms as well. So, there's no way to accurately gauge how successful those movies were when so much of the fan base watched them streaming right away, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also think that it's smart for Trancas to not put themselves in a position where it's like, okay, let's foot all the bill for this thing and then try to sell it and then possibly not get what we need out of it, right? Like, they're not Lucasfilm. They're not George Lucas trying to film 5 seasons of a TV series and then attempt to sell it to HBO. They're so far from that. They're an ant compared to that, right? Like, being realistic about who owns Halloween and what they're capable of is important. They already have a ton of their own eggs in the basket for the game. This game needs to be successful, and I'm sure it will be, but there's a lot of money that they have put into it themselves. Again, not a AAA title. And I think they'll reap the rewards from it. I do. But honestly, to me, this is good news. It is. If you don't want to give the fans something, and even if it was good, just to find out, oh, well, we lost a bunch of money and now we can't make another one, right? Like, no one wants that. And the idea of Paramount coming in, I can't say I like the direction of Scream 7. I thought that movie was a fucking, shit show, in the words of Dave McRae. A fucking shit show. But whether you like Scream 5 or Scream 6, there's no arguing the success of those two films and the fact they went in a direction where it was more of like new blood coming in making the films. And our report from last week was, from what we heard, they don't have any interest in, oh, let's have John Carpenter have a crack at the 50th anniversary. It doesn't mean he won't be involved in producing or music or whatever. Or let's bring back Alan B. McElroy, who is denied multiple times coming back. That's the Halloween 4 guy. Or Dwight Little, Halloween 4 guy as well. They want some fresh new blood to come in here and tell a new story featuring Michael Myers. I firmly believe that. It doesn't mean there won't be nostalgia in it. Doesn't mean there won't be a little bit of retreading. But they don't want this thing to be a straight up retread, and I think that is a good thing. Randy, you weren't here last week either, buddy. Your thoughts on the news that, despite everything else we've talked about, they couldn't find a home for this thing. And then the idea that Paramount might be the ones making the movie with them.
It's kind of surprising to me that they couldn't find a home, but what does that also tell you about the quality of the story? I mean, if it's if the story was good enough, if they were able to get a good enough pitch to anybody, because there's a few out there, whether it's streaming platforms or just channels in general, are usually willing to give certain horror franchises a chance to, for the small screen. You think about some of the successes we've had over the years, whether it's Ash versus Evil Dead or Welcome to Derry, or how even Child's Play had a somewhat semi-successful run. You'd think that Halloween, Michael Myers would be able to get something, but if someone's not willing to give him that chance, clearly the story just wasn't what they were willing to sign off on, and that's a real shame. It's not to say that they have to completely and totally say that we're not doing it, just because you come out with the movie and it's successful, it puts Michael Myers right back out there, and then you can try to repitch the show. I think it's interesting that Paramount would be as potentially could be involved in the future, but it makes sense. They do have a lot of horror franchises they've worked with. Currently they're streaming the Friday the 13th movies, 1 through 8. Obviously, they've done a lot of stuff with Scream, so it would make sense to put that on there as well. But yeah, you have to wonder what the creative minds were thinking in terms of trying to get a pitch out. Did they feel rushed? Did they just try to match what they saw with It, or with Crystal Lake, or any of the other things they made that might be in the pipeline that we haven't really heard a whole lot about? It just kind of makes you wonder. But at least now they have a good singular focus, and hopefully, give us something new, something different, something that is going to wow us in a couple of years. So, and I'm fine with that. The TV series will always have a chance. They got to generate enough buzz, I think, that would warrant someone like Paramount to pick it up.
Dustin, your thoughts on all this, man?
Yeah, we've went back and forth on this, Sean, and I think it came down to, like Randy said, a pitch. Could they come up with something that they felt would be enough draw for it to get picked up? And again, you have to, for making money, right? They're not just going to do this for the love of the franchise as much as we think they might. They're trying to make money. And I think they did the simple, calculations and said, look, we don't think we have an idea that's going to catch on, or that we're going to be able to extend for multiple seasons to where maybe we can get some return on the investment we're making. And, as far as for the Paramount connection, the only reason it makes sense is I know they put out The Curse of Michael Myers and H2O. So they have a history with it. Plus, they own, I think it's like a 49% stake in Miramax. And they also have a first look deal with them where any IP that Miramax owns, they're able to kind of say, hey, we want to make a movie based on this, or a show. So they own the IP. So it makes sense that Paramount would be able to say, hey, this is kind of a hot franchise. We could take this and put it into the movie and make some money on it. So to me, it's not surprising that this is going down. I had very small hopes that it was going to happen originally, just based on the ideas that we were hearing, the pitches that that were coming out, and just the fact that this character, it's kind of hard to have a TV show based on a character such as Michael Myers when that character doesn't speak. And you can do other stuff and you can get creative with it, but they just couldn't find the people that were able to give them the idea that they felt confident enough in, to where they just said, look, we know a movie will at least has the potential to make some money. And I think they're in the right for trying to do something different and go in a new direction. what that will take, what inspirations they'll take from what has come before is still yet to be seen. But I think they just realized that the movie would be the way to go, especially capitalizing on the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure this story is going to evolve in the weeks and months to come. And if we end up getting any inside info, we'll pass it along. But if anyone else, like Dread Central or Scream Horror Mag or anyone else ends up putting their own stuff out, we'll be sure to follow up with that as well. It's an exciting time. I think we can say without a doubt now that right now the current direction is a movie, and they're going to be full force ahead to try to have this thing out by October 2028. And we spoke before that is a ton of time to do a horror movie, and we'll see what ends up happening with it though, because you don't want it to be just meh, right? You want it to hit. But if anyone has any comments or questions that they want to put down below, even after we're off air, feel free to do so. Dustin, I'll go ahead and outro you now, man, because the Star Wars game thing won't be a discussion. It's just going to be a point I talk about. So thanks for coming out, man. I know you just started House of the Dragon a few weeks ago, and now you're all the way caught up. I hope you've been enjoying it, and we definitely love having you on.
Yeah, it's been great to experience it and not have to wait the time that everyone else has had to wait to watch the show. So I'm getting kind of the instant gratification of, seeing this story. And, the fact that it didn't get spoiled for me enough, which is great. I'm enjoying it, and I look forward to next week. We can talk episode 3.
Absolutely, man. Look forward to having you back. Have a great night and get some sleep. I know 2 little ones is no easy task.
Oh, yeah. I'm heading there right now.
All right, there you have it. Dustin, who will be back on hopefully next week's show, coming out and having some fun. And then there were 3, the mainstays, back for the first time, just 3 of us in a while. So there's a lot of people reporting that the team behind Star Wars Eclipse has gone on strike, which I do believe is true. But the reasoning for it that's being put out there is, there's a lot of information being left out. Obviously, there was that game, I don't remember the name of it, that was close to coming out. They wanted to use the profits of to help finance the rest of this game because, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, might be longer than a couple weeks ago now, might be like a month ago, is that Star Wars Eclipse is like 80 to 85% done. This isn't a game that's like halfway there. This is a game that they fully intended and expected to release next year during the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. Now, the belief is the workers have gone on strike to try to secure the funds in order to get the game finished, so there aren't further layoffs and that the game gets canceled and more people are out of a job. It should also be noted that during this time, Lucasfilm has decided to do a big inside look at the game, the project itself, and it sounds like they're at least considering financing the rest of the game themselves. Now, whether they're willing to do that or not remains to be seen. Maybe they're willing to do a chunk of it, but it's pretty clear that parties are trying to avoid Star Wars 1313 from happening again. Johnny, I'll ask you to be brief on this. Thoughts? Is this the right move? Lucasfilm, not so much the strike. The strikes happen, but Lucasfilm stepping in to say, okay, you know what? Let's look at this thing and see if maybe we can do anything here.
I mean, it's entirely a timing thing, right? The strike was timed. It was intentional, purely to, I don't want to say spite, but to make a maximum statement.
100%.
I mean, when the studio's looking at laying off 115 staff, that's the number. It's rough. It's a 25%
hit.
25% of the company's workforce. Off the cancellation of it. It's Spellcasters Chronicles is the name of the game that was canceled.
Thank you.
It's hard for us to, from the outside looking in, how much it is effective. It's, we can hear these numbers and speculate and rumors on how far into the process they are, how much is left to do, and obviously, we have the official statements, and again, we don't know how effective those things are, because the CEO has consistently stated that this doesn't affect Eclipse and its progress in any way. The staff say otherwise. It's just, I don't know. It's
Infighting.
it's very hard for us as well, because unlike other studios who are in prominent locations, this is a French studio, so all of this is going on in France. So it's hard for us to get accurate, full reporting. So it's, I don't know. I have been afraid ever since Quantic Dream was bought by NetEase a few years ago. It always, I don't want to say I got concerned then, because I kind of did. It just, I don't know. It's just, all we can do is wait and see, That's really all we can do. It looked fun. Everything looked good. And we just, all we can do is wait and see how this goes. Does Lucasfilm or NetEase or someone else put in money to help the studio? It just, I don't know. It's time will tell. That's all I can say,
A lot of pressure points being put here, because Quantic Dream is reportedly for sale again, and you have Lucasfilm, the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. It's a good way to put pressure on them to try to fund more themselves. I don't believe this is going to be Star Wars 13 again. I do think we're going to get this thing, but it's a shame to see the past that has gone on in the we'll say the back half of the making of this thing, and I really hope it doesn't affect the product, but we will find out one way or another, good or bad, whether we get it or not. Randy, some quick thoughts?
It's unfortunate that this has to happen, but as we all know, or some of us may know, the gaming industry in general has been on a bit of a downswing. You last week you have, one of the bigger developers in Bungie, basically reducing their workforce by roughly 400 plus people. Some of these people were originals for when Halo came out. So the fact that a company like Quantic Dream having to do whatever they can do to try to get money just to help fund a game that's almost there, it would make sense for Lucasfilm to at least see what they've done and see if it actually is worth investing in. Because if the story is solid and that it's going to be successful, especially for the 50th anniversary, why not push it over the finish line? It's one of those things where, yes, it's a risk, but the potential reward does that far exceed the risk? And Quantic Dream's always been one of those studios that knows how to tell a story. I feel like this has a good opportunity here to be that, at least something that we can really kind of grasp onto as we wait for the next Jedi game, as we wait for the KOTOR remake, if that ever gets done. Because one of the things that's always drawn us as Star Wars fans is the story. And honestly, I'm hoping and praying that we actually get to see that the Eclipse gets to see the light of day.
You and me both. Let's move on to some wrestling here. My phone's at 9%, so we don't have a ton of time. Quickly, thoughts on Sami Zayn winning the title, and I think I don't know how much Johnny watches SmackDown or not, but I didn't realize because I didn't watch Raw tonight or anything. Haven't
This
watched it a
afternoon,
bit.
this evening, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a double, triple taping. I don't know, whatever the hell they're doing.
It's a double taping.
But apparently they, I think I spoiled SmackDown. I didn't intend to, so hopefully you're not pissed off about that, and hopefully none of the audience is pissed off about that. But since I already went and opened my mouth about it, I'm going to bring it up again. Is for the Raw in Chicago next week, the show that CM Punk is speculated to return on. It's also speculated that he's likely going to face Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. It's Cody Rhodes versus Sami Zayn for the championship next week on Raw. Maybe they make a triple threat out of it. I don't know. But, not so much on that and what could happen if it's only a 1 week reign. But in general, Johnny, you've met the man in person, and without going too long winded on it, because my phone is already down to 7%. I have a laptop nearby. I might be able to switch to that. I'm not sure though. It's been finicky. Just your thoughts on him winning the title, and does it take away if he only gets to hold on to it for what would be 10 days or something? At least it's longer than Brett's reign after the Final Four.
I mean, it doesn't hurt his legacy. He has it on his resume now. You can't take that away from him, no matter what you do. So, even if it is a short reign, that's, I don't want to say fine, because it's not. I think that's terrible booking, and I think it's a bad idea. Especially, there are ways to save it, I guess. If Cody heel turns to win the belt back, then I guess you've at least done something in your bad ideas bonanzas that have been going on in Hunter's brain in the last 48 hours. But we're not here to talk about the stupidity that was tonight's Monday Night Raw.
Oh, yes. And if people are wondering why we're drawing some of those conclusions, it is Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar, even though Obafemi won the
in
title.
Hell in a Cell,
and
I said this in a one of the myriad of wrestling groups I'm in. It's too bad SummerSlam isn't a 2-night event, where Oba could face Brock on night 1 in Hell in a Cell, and then night 2 he can go after a title belt, where even if he comes up short after going through Hell in a Cell with Brock Lesnar on night 1, it's not really going to hurt him. Oh, wait. Why can't we do that?
Don't get me started. Just don't get me started on that.
We should be able to do that, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. It really does feel like, I don't know if the title will be involved, but it feels like it's Oba versus Brock, Seth versus Roman, and Punk versus Cody, and I don't know where that leaves Sammy.
It's stupid. I hate to be cynical, but this time, for the history nerds in chat, and I know sometimes we do have those as far as pro wrestling goes, this is Giant Baba winning the NWA title, and I hate that for Sammy, because I think a Sultan wrote a check with a few zeros on it, and it bought Sammy a title run. And I hate that for him, because I think he deserves a genuine title run. I truly believe that. Not just because he's a good soldier who puts up with all the crappy booking they keep putting him through, but because he's a great talent and he's fucking over. He
makes chicken salad out of chicken shit a lot.
Yeah. Come on. This guy turned what was a staunchly decreasing. Sami Zayn prolonged the bloodline by 2 years as a good angle. And that's hard to do,
Supposedly Sammy was supposed to win the title next year at WrestleMania, since it was going to be in Saudi, but
it doesn't help the Saudi check allegations.
No, it does not. No, I feel like it's well deserved. It's about damn time. You're right. It does. If he loses it fast, depending on how long they actually decide to let him have it for. It doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt anything for him. But I feel like this could have been an opportunity to give him at least a Darby Allin type title run where he's defending it and doing whatever he can to keep it, like by hook or by crook, that sort of thing. It to further push the character, even though he's saying, he's the last great good guy, but it's just the idea that you could see him descend into a certain kind of madness even further by having him constantly defend that title and having to start doing whatever it takes to keep it. And a few months down the road, then you can have him drop it. But if that's not how they do it, that's not how they do it. It's a shame that they would waste the potential character growth just to put it back on someone like Cody, or I'm not saying anything bad against Punk, but give it to Punk, or just let the man have his moment and
I
really
don't see why
enjoy
Cody
it.
and Punk can't have a match without the title. They're big
Exactly.
enough names.
I agree.
You don't need a title involved.
No, you don't.
Tell that to John Q. Public, or at least that's what Hunter thinks.
Right. You know how it's going to go down, and I'm calling it right now. Especially after tonight's Oba Brock thing. Sorry, 1 second, guys. I think what happens here is you have the Oba versus Brock thing. Doesn't sound like Oba's going to work 2 nights. You have the Seth versus Roman thing. Who's the other guy in that match at the main event in Saudi?
Gunther.
Correct. And who got screwed by Sammy in the one-on-one defense? Gunther. Gunther is screwing Sammy over next Monday on Raw. Cody's winning that belt, and you're getting Gunther versus Sammy at SummerSlam and Punk versus Cody.
I think you're wrong.
I'm not saying I want that. I'm saying
I genuinely
exactly
think you're wrong
because
they are setting up Nick Aldis's return to the ring against Gunther. That's where they're going. They pushed that on Raw tonight as well, with both of them being suspended, and Nick Aldis is now on administrative leave. They're putting the plans in motion for that, and I think that's where that one's going.
Maybe, but it might not be SummerSlam either. Remember, this is Triple H we're talking about.
I think that makes the most sense at SummerSlam. Because it's 2 nights. You do still have to fill up 2 nights worth of cards.
So you're saying Gunther's going to fight twice, or no?
No, I'm saying he's going to fight once, and it's going to be against Nick Aldis. He is not going to have anything to do with the title until after SummerSlam.
We'll see. I still think Sammy needs his, based on what they told, not based on what I want, his receipt for what happened. I joked around about Saturday night's main event, guys, after you guys told me it was happening before SummerSlam. I will be genuinely surprised if they don't take that title off of Sami Zayn next Monday night. And I'm not saying that's right. In fact, I think it's pretty wrong, if you ask me. And this is coming from a CM Punk guy. You don't need the title between Punk and Cody. Punk could come back and be pissy that Cody lost the title after saying he could have a shot. And boom, that's why they get into it. But I don't know, especially with you saying the thing about maybe one of the Sultans bought it. I don't know. I feel for Sammy. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a long title reign. Feels like it might be very short.
I think the most likely situation is I think Cody's turning heel. I think it's about time. I think losing the title again is going to tip the
Cody
scale
cheats to win, or
yeah,
Cody...
and that. Well, just think a
okay.
heel turn. Just in there is the heel turn.
Give me Cody Lander.
It would make the him and Punk match more interesting than 2 babyfaces.
Yeah, because I don't think that as babyface. No, thank you. The success rate of babyface matches is like
one of them should be heel.
Yeah,
and we've seen Cody having heel tendencies here and there over the past few months. So maybe that is the
all
time.
the way for the. They have been teasing Cody as a heel turn longer than they were teasing Asuka and Kairi splitting up. Look how long that went.
Very true.
Yes.
Is Kevin Owens close or no? Still far way off.
I don't think so.
All right.
I would not be surprised if that's it for him.
I think he's happy with what he's doing, and it's probably about quality of life at this point, especially when it comes with the neck. So
yeah, I mean, never say never. Anyway, because I mean, we said Edge was done. We said Paige was done.
Yeah, because if you think about Danielson and like what he's had to do with his neck. So yeah, I can see part-time. He just has to feel good enough to feel like he can take the bumps and not worry about re-injuring his neck.
Oh
boy, did he yank that. I think it went crossbar, but
yep.
I'm glad you finished your thought there, because that just that pause.
All right, guys, let's get into this. We'll go Randy first. Randy, give us your 3-4 minute review of Forbidden Door.
You always have to wonder how AEW can top the previous pay-per-view, but last night Johnny and I were texting a little bit back and forth. Everything was intense. It was fun. It was nerve-wracking for some of these matches. They really went all out, and the women especially, I was really impressed with what I saw out of the women's matches. But if I had to go in terms of my top 3 matches, my number 3 is Tekla versus Starlight Kid. That match blew me away. Tekla is so damn good, especially and she's been just absolutely blowing everything out of the water when it comes to being the women's champ. I can't wait to just see. I hope these two get to go at it again, especially since Tekla has acclaimed Death to Stardom. Obviously, my number 2 match is Omega versus Zack Sabre Jr. That's a masterclass in terms of just Zack Sabre Jr. is so damn good, and I feel lucky to just get to see him wrestle on the TV screen.
That's rough.
Because he's not in AEW. It's a treat. It's a treat because of that. It's not like we get to see some of these other guys like Shingo Takagi and some of these others that have come over to AEW every so often, but the fact that it's only once a year, it's a special treat. I mean, you think about some of the matches he had with Danielson, and it's just a great thing to have on the card. And Omega showing that he can adapt after everything he's been through, and how close he came to just his life being over because of the diverticulitis. He's showing that he can adapt, and I look forward to his chase for one more title run. And obviously the match of the night for me is going to be Swerve versus Ospreay. That was it's definitely my match of the year right now at this point. Though I will have to say I am worried about how deep Swerve bladed himself, because that he had such a massive crimson mask on that it reminded me of that match with Dustin and Cody back in the day, where Dustin just bled like a stuck pig. And yeah, that was Swerve last night. And they just some of the stuff they did, some of the spots were absolutely amazing. And I'm going to have to say special shout out to Kevin Knight for that ridiculous bump he took off the top of that massive cage through multiple tables, and the bottom table didn't break. So he had a nice sudden stop there. I mean, damn, that 12-man tag match was absolutely insane. And I'm going to say this now. If you said 6 months ago, you'd have said that Leo Rush was going to get over with his Blackheart gimmick and the crowd cheering his name, I said you're out of your mind. But that he has made that character his own, and I'll be damned if he's over with a Gollum-like character. He is over, and it's absolutely amazing.
Johnny, I'm at 2%, buddy. So give us your top 3 matches.
I mean, I'll go quick because for the most part, I agree with Randy. Kenny and Zach was what I thought it was. Two amazingly talented workers putting on an amazingly great match. Swerve.
Sorry, if I disappear for a few minutes, it means my phone died and I'll have to come back to shut down. So feel free to take extra time if that happens.
I mean, Swerve and Ospreay, again, it was what I expected it to be. This is what their third match. I'm pretty sure this was the third. So like it's fantastic. But for me, the ones that stand out the most, Mox and Bandito. I was not expecting that. They say styles make fights. That proved it. Mox is proving again that he doesn't need all of the frills and gimmicks that people are so closely associating with him. Like it's not every match needs to be a hardcore crazy match, and this one again reminded that. You still got the blood.
Yeah, Bandito was bleeding like crazy.
It was a great match. It was better than I expected it to be. Bandito continues to perform above what I expect him to consistently. I was so happy to see Jay White come back at the end of the tag match. I've been waiting a long time for that one. Maya World has shocked the world. No pun intended. Considering where she started and where she is now. I didn't expect much from that. I didn't expect her to have this run in the tournament. When she replaced Sari, it just, I kind of thought the story might get her to the second round, and it did. And then she got past the second round, and it's like, wait a minute, what is happening here? Honestly, goes out there and, I don't know how much of that was Mercedes carrying and how much of that was her talent, because I don't know her well enough. I don't know her resume well enough outside of AEW. Because I'm not as in touch with the women's scene in a post Shimmer world. That was where I got my women's wrestling fix. It's
really starting to feel like a Maple Leafs game.
No, for me, it was the cage match. That that was my match of the night. It was the clusterfuck I wanted it to be. It was chaotic, but it was still great. Some of those great spots in there, I love them. You're right. Leo Rush was great. I did not expect that. I didn't see it coming. When I first saw the cage in the pre-show, I was like, that's different. I like visually, I like the look. I don't know how the function is going to be, but I enjoyed it. I didn't think, it didn't take anything away from the match. I enjoyed the circular. It was different. It was unique, and that stands out. I'll say it. You liked the spot. I hated it. I hated the Kevin Knight spot with the bag and the bomb, and that was just.
Well, I left that part out. I'm just saying the bump he took. That's all I was saying.
Fuck.
And then Darby doing Darby things. Coffin drop off the top of the cage. I mean,
I hate penalty kicks.
They fucking choke that shit away. I'll say this. Earlier. No, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
I said this in the fantasy football chat. Penalty kicks in soccer are 90% don't miss the net, 10% hope the goalie doesn't guess right fast enough. That proved it. Again, they fell into the 90%. And the
probably
10%.
A better matchup for Canada, but a long shot still. At
least I can cheer for them without feeling bad in any way.
I mean, they had it. They gave up the tying goal literally right on the 90th minute second. And then, they had extra time, but then they blew the penalty kicks big time. Missed net, multiple posts.
I think his phone officially died. No, but the cage match was a lot of fun. I loved seeing an NES get pulled out of one of the backpacks. Oh, that was so good.
I loved the Takeshita backpack spot. I called that as soon as he started.
I
called that
know.
as soon as he started reaching down. I'm like, oh, he's pulling out a middle finger.
The fact that it broke Okada, like he just died laughing, and he's like, "Wait a second, I'm in a match. I need to kind of get back into it."
Yeah, I thought it was great. I hate how obvious the Andrade turn was, though, building up towards it.
True, we knew it was coming. I love
Not
the
even
shirt though.
that. Not even. Oh, I actually knew the shirt was coming before the shirt came.
Oh damn!
I called the shirt pretty early in the match when he didn't take off the
Okay, yeah,
the
that makes
long
sense.
sleeve shirt underneath the team shirt. I'm like, he's hiding something, which doesn't make which makes sense and doesn't make sense because you're like, well, what could he be hiding under a shirt? It's another shirt, but like then you think about it and it's like, oh yeah, you can't show any of that if the other shirt rides up a little bit, so you've got to have something in between. So yeah, okay, now that makes sense. But Jake Doyle,
Oh yeah, he was a monster.
I'm sorry, Mark Davis, not Jake Doyle.
No, Jake Doyle, because he was Jake something in TNA.
Is it Jake I'm thinking of?
Yeah, because Mark Davis wasn't in this. But yeah,
I don't know why because like my brain, I don't know if he just kept saying it, but I was sure they kept saying Mark Davis on commentary. They could have just been talking about him, I guess, but
it's possible.
I'll admit I was fucking tired. I'll admit the last 3 matches, I was like,
well, it did end at 1:00.
I was fighting to stay awake for the last 3 matches.
Yeah, I admit I had an energy drink like midway through because I knew I was going to need that little extra something to get through it.
Yeah.
Nah, all around it was a great pay-per-view, though. I think it sets things up nicely for All In, and yeah, that's going to be at least that's it during the middle of the day.
I do love how they're setting up All In, like how they're not leaning into it's Will Ospreay versus MJF. I like that they're not leaning into that because it does make you go, what have you got cooking? Because we do have, we have the pay-per-view in Montreal between now and then, which we didn't have before. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's the new one. It's in Montreal.
Yeah,
Redemption.
I mean, do we get Osprey Omega? I mean, that would be.
It's tough. I mean, like I can see both sides. Honestly, I'd rather Omega because I don't want MJF and Osprey in consecutive Wembley Stadium shows, and that's what it would be. Because last Wembley was Osprey and MJF for the United States International title, and I don't necessarily want that again. Because then it's just,
True.
I saw this 2 years ago. Whereas Kenny's Kenny and Osprey's Osprey, and I don't think Osprey's ever beat Kenny in a one-on-one.
I thought they've at least traded. I think because this would be Osprey Omega 3, and I think they're 1-1.
They could be. Osprey might have got a dub before he joined AEW. But like,
yeah, because I think it was at Forbidden Door, the first one.
But it just, I think that's the better match for making Will. Because it is sort of, the last great one handing off to the next great one, sort of more so than MJF, who is just.
Oh, he's got many more title runs in him.
Oh,
so
yeah. I mean, he's, he's what, under 30 still?
I think he just turned 30 this year. So I think he was 23 or 24.
Let's see, I'll pull this up really quick. He just turned 30 a couple months ago. So he's still got a lot of title runs left in him.
Well, and he's given his knee issues, I think it wouldn't be a horrible thing to kind of have him drop the title just so he can get some rest and recovery in for that, just so he can prepare for prepare for All In if he's even there. So yeah, I like the idea of Kenny and Will going at it for the title.
I didn't see it. I haven't watched much AEW at all. Watch a lot of highlights though. YouTube and X are my friends for that. I loved the design of the circle cage. That was really cool. I can appreciate a change in shape. It was cool to see Jay White back too. I'm a big Jay White guy. Yeah, I wish I had more to add than that, but I don't. I guess I like that, Copeland like celebrates with Jay White a bit, but Christian still, staying in character is like up in his face and don't change, stay the same. And I have to say, on a side note, away from AEW, WWE put out this playlist recently on YouTube that I've been just watching at nighttime, and it's the Undertaker run from when he makes JR kiss Vince's ass on. And I got to say, that's my favorite Undertaker run. Heel Biker Taker was just, he's fucking gold. So you think you're better than me? Oh my God. I'll never let that one down. Also, I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall this weekend when CM Punk, Phil Brooks, and Tony Khan were in the same place at once. I'd like to think that egos can, specifically Phil Brooks' ego, can put, well enough aside when they have someone celebrating something like a marriage. But still, it would have been cool, like to have the three of us camping out in a bush dressed up with like camouflage face paint, like that Whitest Kids You Know skit, and us just being like, oh, did you see the way he looked at him? Does Tony fear for his life? Is Punk going to be stupid and do stupid shit and say stupid shit out of pettiness?
If there was a wedding to have crashed and to just witness in general, I mean, Darby's mom body slammed him on tax. Brody King freaking chest chopped Darby's father, bare chested on top of it. I mean, it was just sounded like they just had a fucking blast with it.
My guess is Phil showed up early, or not early, but showed up and left early. That would be where my money is on the MGM betting thing. How long did he or how long did he stay? Not long at all, is my guess. So,
I didn't even know he was there.
yeah, him and Darby and why can I not think of the big guy's name?
Good, Brody King.
That's it. Yeah, they're all pretty close and still hang out.
I know Brody and Punk were still close, but I didn't know.
Yeah, Darby actually just did I shouldn't say he just did an interview. It might be old now. Ariel Hawani interview where he defended Punk because just like the shit that was happening and just saying like, yeah, people point at Punk as like the toxic guy and there might have been some stuff, but like, no, he wasn't the main issue that was going on. So, and they, I don't know how long ago it is now because time seems to move so fucking fast. July, people. It's about to be July. Whew. Got that air conditioner going yet, Johnny?
Brother, I've had it on for like 3 weeks.
Not us, unfortunately. So, thank God for this.
I'm in the concrete jungle still.
Anyways, though, I think that's going to do it for this show. 2 hours and 47 minutes into it. This was fun. We got ample House of the Dragon time, ample Halloween time. You guys got some extra wrestling time. We've been talked a little longer than we intended to on Eclipse. I'm ending it on probably a terrible sound quality laptop with a fan in the background.
That's not bad.
So apologies for that. But it was fun. And I don't have work in the morning, so I think I'm going to stay up another half an hour or so and maybe watch some YouTube and then hit the hay, because while I don't have work, I have 2 kids and now 2 kittens who will likely annoy me way too early in the morning. So
they don't care that you don't have work.
Yeah, they don't. At all.
Wake up and feed me, damn it.
Right?
Is that the cat or the kid?
Both. All right, fellas. This was fun. Until we all convene again. We will see you all when the Empire